let's talk about the coaches. What coaches on this Cleveland Browns team right now will likely be gone after the end of this season? We know who's safe, right? Kevin's not going anywhere, but who's not safe? Well, let's have a conversation about it. The first coaches in this conversation I want to have about are the coaches that I think aren't going anywhere, that people might bring up and think might be going somewhere. Kevin, obviously, he's safe. Andy Dickerson, offensive line coach. A lot of flack on him, right? People saying that it's his fault that the offensive line is not good. I'm going to just be real honest with y'all. When I look at the offensive line, I don't think that they're bad right now because of some great technical failing or some great schematic failing. They're old. They're small. They're not as athletic as they used to be. And they're not as strong as they used to be. That's why the Browns' offensive line is not good. I don't think Andy Dickerson is a part of accelerating that problem. Honestly, when I look at some of the new stuff that Andy Dickerson has brought into the run game, I feel like if we had some competent offensive linemen or some offensive linemen that were more fit for what Andy Dickerson wants to do with them, you would have a lot more success in the run game. So I look at Andy Dickerson. I look at what it is that Andy Dickerson is supposed to be doing, what usually falls under an offensive line coach. And I think to myself, this does not seem like he is the problem. It seems like the personnel is the problem. And I did a whole conversation about this with Brad Ward, where we talked about it. The Browns need to blow up that interior. It's about time. It is what it is. It's going to be a tough pill to swallow, but it's a pill that's necessary because that is going to get the Browns to a much better place with this run game. But yeah, man, Andy Dickerson, I know there's been a lot of smoke on him. A lot of fans are not happy with the job that he's done, and he's had the unfortunate privilege of being the guy who fills in for the shadow of Bill Callahan, who is a legitimately great offensive line coach. And then on top of that, he's the dude in charge the year that guy leaves, and the year the offensive line visibly looks bad. For the first, like last year, they were bad, but it wasn't as visible. This year, they're visibly bad. They can't run the ball. It's unfortunate. It's a tough pill for Andy Dickerson. It's a tough deal for Andy Dickerson, but I don't think this is his fault. I think he's a good coach. He was a good offensive line coach in Seattle. He was a really good run game coordinator in Seattle. I see him as somebody who will get a pass on this. Somebody I do think will get the boot because of how the run game has looked, but I don't think Andy Dickerson is going to be the guy who gets the boot. I just can't look at any of these things in good faith and think that it's Andy Dickerson's problem. And the only good argument that I've heard, well, not even a good argument, the only argument I've heard is like, hey, well, Bill Callahan, he left and now it's this. But I don't think Andy Dickerson's a bad offensive line coach. So I'll go with that. Shout out to Pete Smith, who, continuously kind of goes to bat for Andy Dickerson and points out some of the stuff that he's doing well. So if you want to know more about what Andy Dickerson's doing, check out Pete Smith's stuff on the OBR. Another coach I don't think is going anywhere, Tommy Rees. Now, there's a specific reason I don't think Tommy Rees is going anywhere, right? He used to be the offensive coordinator at Alabama. Right now, he's the Browns' tight end coach. David Njoku has not had a good year catching the ball, but that's not Tommy Rees's fault. That's David Njoku's responsibility to catch the football. I thought he got a lot out of the other tight ends, right? Like we bringing in some dudes off the practice squad and we're getting good performances from them. I think Tommy Rees has done an excellent job as a positional coach. And I think that's going to be something that gets him promoted to the lead offensive assistant or offensive coordinator if the Browns make some of the moves that I expect them to make. But yeah, Tommy Rees, he's good. The next guy I think is definitely safe for the most part, Jim Schwartz. Now, Jim Schwartz is at that point in his career where he'll retire, and maybe that happens. But I don't think you fire Jim Schwartz just because he had an off year defensively. I get the problems that some folks have on Jim Schwartz's scheme. Is it too simplistic? Does he ask linebackers to do too much? I get all of that, but I mean, you just had one of the best defenses on earth last year. You're not about to fire that guy because he didn't have a repeat that performance in year 2. Like, you're going to give him more than 2 years. Seems kind of crazy to do. All right. The next guy that I think might not be on the Browns next year, but it might be because he might be up for a promotion, could be Chad O'Shea. The Browns wide receiver room has been a testament to Chad. And look, Chad's gotten a lot of flack over the years from some very credible people in the media, especially in Browns media, talking about his ability to do his job. But you look at the development of Cedric Tillman, you look at the development of of Jerry Jeudy. You look at the development of a lot of these young wide receivers, Elijah Moore. Chad O'Shea looks really good in that. If somebody's looking for an assistant to promote, he's been around long enough. He's been respected long enough that I think somebody takes a chance and potentially poaches Chad O'Shea to promote him somewhere else, or maybe the Browns promote him internally to bigger responsibilities. Now let's talk about the guys on this coaching staff I think will have a hard time coming back. First guy's a surprise name, but I think it's Deuce Staley. The absolute failure of the Dante Foreman signing and the lack of trust that the offensive staff seems to have in this running back room entirely does not speak well for Deuce. Right? Now, again, I'm not going to blame him for the production of the running back room entirely, because I think that has to do with how aged your interior offensive line is. But I think the Browns expected that Jerome Ford would have more than 400 rushing yards right now. I think the Browns expected that even with a bad offensive line, they'd be able to get more production out the run game. Honestly, I'm seeing all of our running backs be way more hesitant than they were before Deuce got here. Like, some of this stuff feels off with the coaching points, right? Like, people get mad at what Jerome Ford does when he runs the ball, but I think he's doing what he's coached to do, right? I think Deuce hasn't had a great year as the running back coach. You look at his history, he really didn't stick around in Detroit that long. He got let go of the Carolina Panthers. Like, the history isn't strong there. And Deontay Foreman, no doubt, was a Deuce Staley pound the table signing, because this is somebody who was with Deuce at his last stop. And the fact that the Browns haven't gave that man a carry in what feels like 2 months can't bode well for the job that they think Deuce Staley is doing right now. Browns about to bring in a bunch of new running backs. Browns about to rehaul this whole run game. I don't think Deuce Staley is going to be a part of that. I think they go out, get them a new running back coach, because I don't think Deuce Staley has met their expectations, unfortunately. All right, let's talk about the guy I think is also likely gone, right? These are guys who likely will be fired, but not definitely. Ken Dorsey. I don't think Ken Dorsey is going to get fired for performance. If you look at the offensive performance since Deshaun Watson has went out, it speaks very highly for Ken Dorsey. I just think that there is a fundamental issue with what Ken Dorsey is as an offensive coordinator and what the Browns will need going forward. The Browns brought in Ken Dorsey for 2 things. Ken Dorsey was brought in to build an offense around Deshaun Watson. Ken Dorsey was brought in to kind of elevate the Browns offense to something that a veteran quarterback would be more used to. Well, since Ken Dorsey has came here, we now know that Deshaun Watson not built the offense around Worthy. So that part of his job description that he was brought in for, gone. Also, we know that the Browns are likely not going to have a veteran quarterback or be in a veteran quarterback situation for a couple of years here, right? They're going to have to do some rebuilding, right? That doesn't mean that they stop trying to be competitive next year. They're going to still try to make the playoffs next year and the year after. But the Browns are probably aiming for a Super Bowl window in 2027. They'll try to be good in 2025, 26, but the Super Bowl window for them is probably reset for 2027 when they're free of the Watson contract and they're going to be more free to make some big free agent signings and be aggressive. And they will have 2-3 years of first round picks. Those guys will be developed. They will be ready for their second window in the Barry Stefanski regime. And that means getting younger at quarterback. And if you're not getting younger at quarterback, you're going to install a bridge, which means getting simpler at the quarterback position, which means you don't need to have an offensive coordinator who's in there for veteran quarterbacks. Now, this might be awkward because I don't think it's a good look for the Browns to fire Ken Dorsey after 1 year when the numbers have been fine with Ken Dorsey. Maybe this is a situation where he kind of goes back to just being the offensive coordinator and Kevin calls the plays again. Maybe you don't go back to that because that did fix the Browns like getting the play calling issues that they were having earlier this season and the pre-snap issues. I don't know. Seems like the only solution is just let Ken Dorsey go or announce like a separation or whatever you want to do here because it just doesn't feel like Ken Dorsey is useful for where this team is going. It's going to be a tough spot. Now, there are two things on this team that I think are going to be gone. The special team staff, including Bubba Ventrone, I think that's going to all get wiped out this year. They got to let it all go. Has not been good. Bubba Ventrone, well below expectations. Maybe you give him a third year to figure it out. Think about Kevin. He tends to give his guys chances to figure it out, for better or worse. So he might do that with Bubba Ben. I think he's got to be gone by this point. And I do think the Browns are going to make some significant changes in the training staff. A lot of people have been pounding the table for this. I've been hesitant because in 2023, it didn't seem like a lot of the Browns' issues had to do with the training staff. But this year, it does seem like a lot of these issues are with the training staff. The reason I make that distinction is getting injured in a football game, I'm not going to blame that on the training staff. What I do blame on the training staff is Jed Wills consistently having knee complications. The same thing happened to Jack Conklin. Like, what's going on there, right? Like, a number of injuries that have lasted longer than what anybody anticipated have happened to this team. What's going on with Nyheim Hines, right? Just, it does not feel like the Browns are getting timelines and results from their training staff when it comes to injury prevention, when it comes to return from injury that they expect from a training staff. And I think that's why they will finally move on from their current training staff. But those are the coaches that I think are safe. Those are the coaches that I think might be gone. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.